ReconAthlete.com podcast is brought to you by Lawnman ATX and Kreitz Market. ReconAthlete.com podcast. Paul, do you remember what episode this is?
I believe we're on episode 17.
Man, we're getting almost legal here.
Almost.
Paul Rodriguez, Zach Lucero, Chris Sanchez. Shout out to Snoop Daniel. He's not here right now, but maybe he'll show up at some point. You got to check it. I mean, if you're on Facebook or Instagram and you don't follow Jonathan Daniel, you need to do that.
Are we putting that up on the podcast?
I mean, yes.
Okay.
You got to put that out there because he put the picture of himself in a bunny suit, a pink bunny suit. It reminds me of A Christmas Story.
Exactly.
Holiday season's coming up, and he puts "Don't judge," and I'm like, I put on the Instagram. I was like, "All rise," you know.
I saw that.
Yeah. Judge Sanchez presiding, and I was just like, my verdict is bruh. So it's you got to check out Jonathan Daniel. Shout out to Snoop. All right, NFL, then high school, then college. NFL Cowboy bashing. How much do we want to bash the Cowboys, Zach, for losing the New York Jets?
I think the Jets is like
a little reservation there.
I know, right?
Do I get to say?
Yeah, go ahead. You were stuttering, so I wasn't sure if you had any thoughts together.
Go ahead.
Like, I feel like the Jets are probably one of the most mysterious teams in the NFL because that complete team has not been on the field together all year. Like, the Jets are a different team than what we thought because Sam Darnold played. Imagine when they get C.J. Mosley back on defense. This is a team that literally you know nothing about. The reason everyone is so tripping about this Cowboys loss is because everyone thought the Jets were terrible. The Jets are terrible with Luke Falk, for sure. Mm-hmm. The Jets with Sam Darnold, no one knows because we haven't seen that since last year or for like half a second at the beginning of this year. Ever since Sam Darnold got chickenpox. Like, it's just – I appreciate the hesitancy to bash the Cowboys, but I think we should give the Jets a little bit more credit than that.
Paul?
Well, I was talking about this on Saturday to not be so quick for the Cowboys to cover those 7 points, and I thought it would be maybe a 3 or 4 point victory for the Cowboys, and it very well could have been, if they had an elite quarterback, but they don't. They have Dak Prescott. Mm-hmm. But props to the Jets. I think that we knew the Jets were probably a above average team with Sam Darnold, which I think they are. I mean, their only loss that was with Sam Darnold was a 17-16 loss in week 1 to the Bills. And right now, 5 weeks later, the Bills have the number 2 defense. They only held Tom Brady to 16 points as well. So that kind of says something. So this is a divisional matchup with Buffalo, but with Buffalo and the Jets. But yeah, we're gonna bash the Cowboys. I'm sick and tired of mediocrity that's being sold by Jerry Jones because that's what he does for the past 20 years after he won the Super Bowl. But I think relief is coming. Maybe not now, maybe not at the end of the season, but probably in 2 years, depending on how things go. Lincoln Riley, come on down, man. You're the next contestant on the coach's Price is Right for Jerry Jones. So I think that's going to be the next pick. Will it happen this year? I hope so at the end of the season. But if you got a ball fade, you got Jordan 13s, white on blues. You traded in your Romo throwback jersey for the Dak Prescott jersey and you wear jorts. I'm talking to you. Stop paying for jerseys and giving Jerry Jones money so that he can keep feeding you the mediocrity. And every time y'all get a star player, you're saying, we're going to the Super Bowl, but when y'all lose, it's crickets on social media. Mm-hmm. So those are the people that I'm talking to. Cowboy haters, soak it up right now because you're in your golden time right now, mid-season or near mid-season. And Dallas is garbage. Right now, they're just not good. Their defense is even horrible, more horrible than I thought. I'm on y'all's bandwagon with the defense being mediocre. Because they are. Right now, they're not playing well. And I don't care about injuries. This is the NFL. Everybody gets injuries. Make some trades. Make some moves. Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones ain't doing it.
But, I mean, that defense is just as average as the offense. Like, people want to Like Zeke is the best player on that offense, 100%.
If the offensive line's 100% and Zeke's 100%, those are the two best units that the Cowboys have, period. But I agree.
But like the best player, period, on that offense is Zeke. The Amari Cooper is not an elite receiver. He is not in that group with the elite guys. He's just the guy that the Raiders were willing to give up. Like if he was really that good, they wouldn't be moving him like that. The only time superstar players get moved is if they're causing trouble in the locker room.
Well, I don't think Khalil Mack was causing trouble in the Raiders locker room, to be honest with you. But I understand what you're saying.
Right, but I mean like Odell, like they got rid of him.
Ramsey.
Right, exactly. Like these people are people that the teammates are shipping out. They're like shipping them out on purpose. The players that are getting traded like willy-nilly, like Amari Cooper did, is they know that it's a loss that they can take. Like the Raiders are doing just fine without him. You could argue the Raiders are doing better than the Cowboys. And if you want to say we took their, like if you just say it, the Cowboys took the Raiders' best receiver, they shouldn't be as good as they are right now. But the Raiders knew that Amari Cooper is an above-average receiver, but not a superstar that they can build their franchise around. And that's exactly what the Cowboys think they're going to do. They think they're going to pair him with a superstar quarterback. They don't have either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that Amari Cooper is you're right. He's not an elite wide receiver. He is above average. I do think he's a number one wide receiver. He can definitely, be that guy. He's no Michael Irvin. But I think he's serviceable. I think he can be the guy that you're going to when you need, you need some downfield presence.
When he's 100%.
When he's 100%.
He's not right now.
Right. But I think he's a number one wide receiver. Zeke Elliott, obviously a number one running back. You don't really have a tight end. Jason Witten's doing all he can, at 49 years old or however the heck old he is. You're right. But I mean, they brought him back because you need the tight end. They're trying to. Jerry's still trying to build that early '90s Cowboys team. But Dak Prescott isn't where it's at. So he doesn't have the quarterback. He doesn't have the wide receiver. I'm going to agree with you on that because Michael Irvin was, he's a Hall of Famer. Amari Cooper, not a Hall of Famer.
Well, I mean, even if you want to say he's the number one wide receiver, think of the other number ones in the league. He's not better than Keenan Allen.
No.
He's not better than Devontae Adams.
No.
He's nowhere in the tier of Julio's and D-Hops and Odell's.
I think
he's not better than
Mike Evans is better than him.
Yeah, he's not better than Jarvis, and he's the number 2 in Cleveland. I'm having a hard time thinking of a receiver that Amari Cooper is better than that's number 1 somewhere. Amari Cooper is a Calvin Ridley.
Is he better than Robbie Anderson?
They're the same. They're the same.
I think
they're the same.
Robbie Anderson's the number 1 wide receiver in New York Jets. So,
and he looked really good.
Yeah,
it's because Dallas' defense looked really bad.
And to me, that's Sam Darnold being better than Dak Prescott.
And the Dallas defense looked really bad. The games that Amari Cooper looked really good in, those defenses didn't look great. I'm just Amari Cooper is Calvin Ridley for real. Like I really just got that in my head. Like they're both from Alabama. They would complement a big go get it receiver really, really well. By themselves, they're average.
So you're saying that if they had a big body possession receivers, they could stand out?
And if you think of all the really good Cowboys receivers, those have been those kind of receivers. Dez was like that. Roy Williams was like that. Michael Irvin was like that. T.O. was like that. Where we are in the league, it's hard to be the smaller possession, rack 'em up receiver and be a number 1. It's hard. That's why I think DeAndre Hopkins is such an anomaly, is because he's not 6'6". He's not 6'5". He's a little bit. He's what is he? Probably like 6'2",
6'1", He's around Amari's height.
Right, and there's no way you're putting those people in the same breath.
Yeah, and if you ask somebody that didn't know and you just watched them play, you would assume that DeAndre Hopkins is 6'5", 6'6", because of the way he plays
and his leaping ability.
Right.
I think for Calvin Ridley, I think for Amari Cooper to be relevant. Exactly, yeah. You got me convinced, Zach. I'm with you. You got me convinced. But Amari Cooper, I think, could do well with his route running, and that's his biggest asset. When he's healthy, he can cut and he can move, but when he's not healthy, he's not a good receiver. And that's probably why he's not playing.
And then again, another thing is this Cowboy team has gone so far away from their identity because they've been so infatuated with Dak. Every year, every offseason, it's been about solidifying the offensive line. Even when you thought the offensive line was good, they were solidifying depth in the offensive line to build around Zeke. And then all of a sudden, Dak got all this hype. This is the same dude that got jumped at spring break, but he's still getting all this hype. And they're trying to bring in receivers. They're trying to bring in receivers. They're trying to bring in backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And Tony Pollard, like that's not the identity of this team. You can't, and you're too far, you're too deep to switch identities now. Like you've already tried to be, we're going to be physical up front, we're going to run the ball, and Dak will complement that, not the other way around, but now they're trying to switch up.
If you go ahead.
So is Dak Prescott a Quincy Carter that had more success at the beginning of his career?
He's a Quincy Carter that,
due to the fact that Quincy didn't have Ezekiel Elliott. But that was like Dak's kind of like Jerry's guy, right?
Dak is just keeping his nose better than Quincy.
Yeah, and Quincy was Jerry's guy as well, you know, and I think that it was just he didn't have that running game at the beginning of his career.
Dak and Jason Garrett are the same. They're both Jerry's people that have been given a leash that's too long.
Are we buying rumors that Kellen Moore's not calling the offense anymore after that first loss, and Jason Garrett's taking over to try to salvage something, thinking that he could call a better game? Because that offense doesn't look like the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, in my opinion.
I guess.
I still think Kellen Moore is calling it because the hype about Kellen Moore was he's going to get Dak more involved. He's going to air it out and become like this new wave of offensive coordinators.
The reason they're having to throw so much in the beginning is because they get down 2 or 3 scores and they're forced to try to catch back up. And they do it by the third quarter, but that's because the game's over.
But I just think Kellen Moore is showing signs that of a young offensive coordinator because he tries to run the ball early in the game and it doesn't work, and he's like, all right, that's not going to work, and then tries to pass and say F the run. But like that's not how the NFL works. Like you got to keep pounding it, and it's going to open up because now he gets to a point where the running game isn't there, so he totally scraps that and goes to the passing game as opposed to continuing to run the ball with the threat of the pass. But now you have no threat of the run, and teams are keying on that.
But I'm remembering like 6 or 7 years ago when Jason Garrett was the offense coordinator and the head coach, and Linehan hadn't gotten there yet, and that's what this offense looks like. And I think that's where Jason Garrett is seeing a little bit of trouble because with the losses, and I think Jerry's putting pressure on him to say, look, something's got to get fixed, take it from the kid, let him think he's calling the plays, but this is what we really need to happen. And then Scott Linehan, he couldn't get the job done either, and that's why he's not there. And I think if Kellen Moore, which he was probably calling the game the first 3 weeks, and they played bad defenses, and once they got into trouble, they're like, let's take it from the kid and let's go ahead and call it our game. And I think that's what we're seeing now because these players, I don't see them quitting on Kellen Moore. I see them quitting on Jason Garrett.
So we haven't really gotten into what I think is the problem. It's been the problem since, in my opinion, 2014, 2013 probably.
Since then?
Yeah, Jason Garrett. That's the ultimate problem. But
it was 9 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he went, I think it was, I looked it up the other day. He was 5-3 when he took over for, was it Wade Phillips?
Yeah, that was a midseason.
Midseason, took over 5-3. Then he was 8-8 3 years in a row. I mean, granted, the year after that, he was 12-4.
But Jerry gets happy with these divisional titles.
But like you know how
he didn't win a division at 8-8. You weren't winning division titles.
But the past 3 years, they got 2.
Right, but I mean, after 3 years of 8-8, I mean,
Jerry rewards loyalty.
You got to. I mean. At that point, I was like, you got to get rid of this guy. And then they had one good season, 12-4. He won a NFC East title. He's won a couple since then, but I don't think that he's not the answer. And I think the fact that people are blaming Dak and Mari Cooper and Jerry Jones are just completely whitewashing the fact that Jason Garrett has been the one constant in the mediocrity for the past decade. And if you don't get rid of that constant, then you're, what Albert Einstein says, you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's what you're doing, in my opinion, Zach.
Honestly, I think if you grab 10 Cowboys fans and ask them what the problem was, it would surprise me if any of them said Jason Garrett. And then if you said, well, what about Jason Garrett? They'd be like, well, yeah. But I think people are just so numb to that by now that they just know.
That's a great
point. Because if Jason Garrett was going to be gone, he would have been gone.
Yeah.
He would have been gone a while back, just like you were saying. But you know how much you have to like somebody to promote them and get rid of the guy mid-season and then stick with them? Most of the time when you see these interim guys, they're just that, an interim guy until they do something, and then they put the big time label on it. But he's so much Jerry's guy that you're just kind of stuck. You're just kind of stuck, and I think that's part of the reason that you give so much power to this young play caller, Kellen Moore. It's Jerry and Jason love to have these kind of scapegoats around to be able to get rid of everybody but Jason, because once you get rid of Jason, then you're relinquishing some of your power if you're Jerry Jones.
The Cowboys are a family business, and the main constant above Jason Garrett is Jerry Jones, and that's what he's feeding mediocrity to Cowboys fans for 23 years. I would really be curious to know how the Cowboys would be ran if Jerry Jones wasn't there and Steven was running the show. Would it be different? Would we have different answers? I think we would, because I think what happens is a lot of times Steven wants to go in a different direction and Jerry vetoes him. That's the way I see that's the way I see their war room, quote unquote, going. And I wish Jerry Jones vitality and good health, but geez, let's see what the Cowboys are like without Jerry Jones.
Officials.
Oh.
That was really good, guys. Officials. The officials have been in the limelight in 2019 season. I think more because of Twitter than anything else. Has the officials in the NFL, the officiating been that bad compared to years past, or in y'all's opinion, do you think it's just being magnified because of the social media world that we live in now?
I think it's just being magnified, man. Like it's never going to be right.
Right.
It's never going to be right. And once it's right, that's going to ruin the game. People like, even if they did flip all these pass interference calls and stuff that are getting reviewed, that people are saying like, why even bother reviewing it if you're not going to flip it? That would slow the game up so much, because once they start flipping it and getting ticky-tacky with the rules, you'll just get even more. So I think it's been as bad as it's always been and as good as it's always been. However, that Saints call last year just put it smack dab in the middle of the limelight, and the NFL will never be able to live that down because it happened in such a prime moment in social media and in cancel culture and all these things. It happened at the perfect time to be the biggest pain in the NFL's. You know what?
My response is twofold. Number one, I think that we can't legislate the game to be ran by reviews and flags and overturns, because it just makes this spectacle even bigger than it is. The second part to that is, I don't know if y'all notice, but I notice every year the officiating is extremely elevated in the beginning of the season. The officials want to come out and let all the teams know these are the rules, these are what we're going to call. But as the season progresses and as we get closer to the playoffs and teams start positioning themselves to go to the playoffs, the calls get lighter. Look at what we had in that game with the Rams and the Saints. Those calls get laxed, and I think what Zach was talking about, how they just get magnified at the wrong time, creates what we have right now with it being overexposed all through social media and everybody getting hurt because their team didn't get the phone or didn't get the call. But as we get later on the season, I think the calls are going to drop down a little bit. I watched the Dallas game, and there were calls all throughout the game, and it did get a little bit annoying, and maybe that's some feedback that the NFL is going to handle with the officiating. But sometimes, I mean, the calls are there and they're calling it, and if you don't like it, then maybe don't watch. But I think it's just a little bit overexposed right now, and everybody in their feelings.
And I think the true test of the new replay rules and stuff, we're not going to get to see the fullest extent of it until playoffs, because why the refs are kind of like, why even bother flipping it now on regular season game, whatever. Yeah. Out of 16, like once we get to playoffs and the calls start really mattering and the moments start really mattering, then I think we'll see this conversation will be amplified times 10.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is right now. I think both of you guys are kind of a little bit reserved on this just because of where we're at in the football season. And I think you're right, Zach. It's the culture that we're in. It's social media. It's how many camera angles that you have now in every single football game, NFL football games. I mean, you can look at the same play. I mean, and they have so many cameras out there now that pretty much everything can be magnified.
If they would have had all these cameras, I bet old dude in Friday Night Lights probably scored.
Right. Exactly.
They would have challenged it.
Exactly. And they would have gave it to him.
And now they have challenges in state championships now
in Texas. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, and I think that's kind of our tepid take for the day is the officiating, and we're not really going overboard yet. Like, I know a lot of times on Twitter and social media, there are some people that just really roast the referees. I'm not there. I'm not quite there yet. I mean, yeah, it sucks, but I mean,
there's some people saying that these officials are just going rogue and they're just calling what they want when they want to.
Because now everyone's talking about like full-time refs and the CBA for refs and stuff. It's just everyone is just so
sensitive,
so
hypersensitive.
Everyone's just so much more informed now than before. Like,
they think they're informed,
right? Yeah. But I mean, like in the past, if they missed a call on a Monday, you would go to the paper on Tuesday morning to read about it, but you wouldn't know like that the refs had just had a CBA and there's no full-time refs and stuff like that. Like you just wouldn't know that, because why would you care?
Yeah.
And now everyone cares just because the information is readily available.
Right.
No one really cares.
No.
They just like to make a point.
ReconAthlete.com podcast. We're brought to you by Lawnman ATX and Kreitz Market. Shout out to King Kalunga, as he wants to be called now.
Keith Schmidt. What's up, man?
And shout out to Keith Schmidt as well. And Chris Becker as well. Shout out to those guys.
Julie Becker, how y'all doing?
And we're going to talk some Longhorns and Aggies here in a little bit. But first, let's do our Taco Shack scoreboard. Shout out to Fanstand ATX high school preview. LBJ Crockett playing Thursday night. LBJ coming off of their loss to Dripping Springs. Man, that was a heartbreaker. I was there. I watched that whole game. Such a great game.
How'd those officiators do?
The officials were not good.
The officials, that's what you call them.
Officials were not good in that game. I'll leave it at that. Dripping Springs, the winners against LBJ last Friday night, taking on Lanier Thursday night. And Friday, that's it. Those two Thursday night games. Okay.
Yeah, we're in district now, so let's slim pickings.
Yeah. Vista Ridge, Cedar Ridge, Battle of the Ridges. Which ridge is better, Vista or Cedar? Paul.
I'm going to take Vista Ridge in this game. I think they're just high right now. They're playing well. Vista Ridge is, we know they got the talent. It's just, can they pull it all together? And I think Vista Ridge's offense just a little bit better than Cedar Ridge's defense on that night.
Zach?
I'm not paying attention.
Okay. Westwood and Vandergrift. Vandergrift is homecoming night there, and I think I'm interested to see how Westwood approaches this game. They'll be they're 2-2. Mm-hmm. They're not completely out of the playoffs yet. Vandergrift's going to be at home. They're going to be in homecoming. There's going to be a lot of distractions. Westwood's played a little bit better the past couple of weeks. RJ Martinez is just a great leader, a great quarterback. I'm not saying that this is an upset special. I'm not saying that this is a trap game. I just think that Westwood might put a few more points than could be expected against this really vaunted Vandergrift defense. Paul does not agree. Zach, what do you think?
No, go ahead, Paul.
Listen, I'm just looking at the numbers, and I know there's going to be a lot of hoopla going on, and Monroe Stadium's probably going to be rocking with homecoming going on. These Vipers give up 11 points a game, and they're probably going to give up 14, and that's it. If they do that, and that's probably good because they're going to have the backups and the backups back up in the fourth quarter. But I think Vista Ridge puts this game away before halftime.
Vandergrift.
Vandergrift before halftime, and big time. Vandy rose big time on homecoming.
Well, I think the formula to play Vandergrift close, teams learned from Vista Ridge, and that's you got to play through the quarterback. If you rely on a running back to beat you, if you rely on a star receiver, that's just not going to happen. The big games, Vista Ridge started out really hot, and that quarterback's a great player. Round Rock, that game was really close, and Seth Ford did. It was his hand that really guided the Round Rock to make that game as competitive as it was. The Hendrickson game, that whole offense ran through that quarterback. And if there's any quarterback in the district that's going to do that, is RJ Martinez. So I'm excited to see the matchup. I think this will be a really good test for the Vipers heading into playoffs. I think the Vipers are going to win, but I don't think this is a typical homecoming game where it's the worst team in the district, and you just do it so that the fans can be happy, and you put up a bunch of points. I think Vandegrift can put up a bunch of points because I don't think Westwood's defense is very good. But offensively, I think it'll be a good show to watch RJ Martinez and that Westwood offense against the Vandegrift defense.
Yeah, I might have to go back out to Vandegrift.
Ryan and Logan Arnold. That'll be the matchups to watch, is how those Vandegrift corners play against this this Westwood offense.
I'd have to try to go. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm already invited to a game on Friday night.
Oh, are you?
You know what game I'm going to? The Westlake Chaparrals homecoming game. They're hosting Del Valley. Shout out to Bird. He was actually on one of our podcasts. Was our podcast number 2?
One of the early ones.
Yeah, number 2 or number 3. But he's going out there. He's been invited by a friend of his. Shout out to Susie. She is a Highline alum, and it being homecoming, the Highline alumni are going to go out there and have a performance and stuff out there. So Eric was like, "Hey man, would you come out here with me?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, who are they playing?" Because homecoming, make sure that it'll be a competitive game. He said Del Valley. I said, "Okay." I haven't seen Del Valley play. I'm not expecting Del Valley to win.
No.
But I do want to see how they perform against this Westlake Chaparral defense. Westlake, of course, coming off their first loss of the season against Lake Travis. We'll talk about Lake Travis here in a little bit. And Lake Travis is going to be off this week.
Did Westwood play last week?
They think they were off last week.
Yeah, so going into last week, RJ Martinez leads Central Texas in 6A with 1,800 passing yards and 12 touchdowns. The next closest person is almost 100 yards under him, and that's the Vista Ridge quarterback,
Kyle Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is going to be the best quarterback that they've faced.
No, I agree. I have to say, I totally agree with you. And Paul's just shaking his head over there. I mean, I'm president of the RJ Martinez fan club over here.
I like RJ. I think the kid's a great quarterback. It's just you're playing Drew Sanders' defense. You're playing the Vipers, who play as a collective. Their job last week was to stop Colin Sullivan. That defense, that's all their job was. This week, I think you're going to see a lot of zone coverage. You're going to see a lot of QB pressures, and you're definitely going to see a spy on RJ Martinez. And I think that the Vipers shut him down and shut him down hard.
But I mean, even Tech puts up good numbers against a good defense because their offense is that good.
A Kingsbury Texas Tech offense, or who this guy I don't even know at Texas Tech.
I mean, any good Tech offense puts up good numbers against any defense. It's all a matter of their defense that makes them Texas Tech.
Okay, do you think that RJ Martinez is going to have over 200 yards passing?
Yeah.
Okay. 2 or 3 touchdowns.
He'll get 2 touchdowns.
I think he's going to get 2 touchdowns, but I think if he gets the 200 yards, man, he comes with 3 picks.
I don't think so.
I don't know about that. Okay. Really?
Well, look at the box score on Saturday morning.
All right. Okay. You sound very confident about this.
I'm listening to Zach and his Vipers conversations for 16 episodes now, so I'm a big believer of the Vipers.
Before we get to the rest of this slate, I did mention Lake Travis beating Westlake, which is a big win, and then of course the big loss that they had in that game was Hudson Card. Now they've already lost, basically their number 1 receiver in Lake McCree. So I think Hudson Card being a loss, I don't know how much that's going to be a loss for Lake Travis, because I think Nate Yarnell can come in and definitely run this offense and definitely be a guy that can lead this Lake Travis Cavalier team. Maybe not to a state title, but I don't think they're going to lose a whole lot. He's a different type of quarterback. They're going to have to change a little bit of what they're doing, but I don't think they lose a whole lot when they go from Card to Yarnell.
I think Nate Yarnell could be the Kyle Allen to Hudson Card's Cam Newton.
He could be the Baker Mayfield to Colin Lagasse.
He could be the Tom Brady to what's his name? Bledsoe.
Drew Henson.
So you're telling me
Drew Bledsoe? Was it Drew Henson?
I was going to go with something different.
Drew Bledsoe. Where were we going to go?
I was going to go, is he the Gardner
Minshew
the second?
To the Nick Foles?
To the Nick Foles in Jacksonville?
All right, I'm ready for Yarnell to ball out.
I mean, I feel bad for Hudson. I feel really bad for him. He senior year, Yeah, you want to play it out. You want to go out with a bang. He's got a foot injury. If they make it all the way to state title, could he come back? I think he probably could, but
I think he's putting his future in.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're saying, you know what, don't. You're going to be playing for the University of Texas. You don't need to be doing all that.
Doing the
stuff.
Nick Bosa.
Hey, man. Why not?
And it worked out well for Nick
Why
Bosa.
not?
He's balling out.
Why not?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, and I really don't think. I mean, Nate. I mean, this kid can ball, dude.
6'5".
We were going to be talking about him
210.
regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, we're just going to get a preview of what Nate Yarnell is going to be next year. I mean, and I think. Do I say this? Are they improved with Nate Yarnell?
I don't think you could say improved.
I think they're improved in the passing game, but not in overall QB.
Not the dual threat.
Not the overall QB. But man, if his line can give him time just to get it out quick, man, and the deep ball, that's what I'm really curious about. See if they can get some action on that.
Yeah.
I think Lake Travis. I was listening to another broadcast on the way in, and they were having Lake Travis as their number one team in the area. I don't think you can necessarily do that after you lose Hudson Card. Mm-hmm. But Lake Travis is probably one of the only teams, maybe in the state, that you could say they lost their quarterback and you can't count them out.
Right.
You know what I'm curious about? Who's Yarnell's backup? Where's Snoop? That's what we need to know because he knows.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I mean, and the way things have been going for Lake Travis this year, you might want to try to get that third guy ready because I mean, hopefully knock on wood. Hopefully Nate stays healthy. All right, well, let's get the rest of these games. Georgetown playing Pflugerville. Pflugerville losing to Conley last week. Of course, a lot of us picked Conley over Pflugerville. Conley going out to the MAC, the Manor Athletic Complex. They're taking on Manor Mustangs. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. If I wasn't going to that Westlake game already, I would definitely want to check out this Conley versus Manor game. I think these teams are built very similarly, and I think it's going to be a great game between the Cougars and the Mustangs.
So who is Westlake playing?
Del Valle.
Why are you going to that?
I mean, we're going to see Caleb Burton.
Caleb Burton and the Westlake.
I mean, come on, man. It's going to be
Paul's
fun.
Paul's already covered them.
Who?
Del Valle?
Yeah.
I've never covered Del Valle.
So are you telling me I got to break my mandate and go to Manor, Conley and Manor?
Come on, man. You got to do it for the podcast. At least go to a
I got to do it.
game.
I go to Wham Nation. Here's another competitive game. Hutto Cedar Park. I've already crowned the Hutto Hippos state champions. Of course they lost Brock Bueno. They lost Makai Kimball. And with that, maybe they're not state champions anymore. Do they still have enough to beat Cedar Park? Let me turn off my computer.
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. An overwhelming yes. The Hutto Hippos, I think, are we getting messages. Oh, look at that. But yes, the Hutto Hippos, I think, have enough to get it done. Against Cedar Park at home, I will be there in the flesh. Baby. Oh, Thunder Lips for you Rocky fans out there. But yes, I think that Grayson the QB links up with Dejon Harrison. They get enough. Landon in Lordsville pressure, Ryder. I think that's going to be competitive. I think it's going to be a back and forth matchup, but I think that home field advantage, Hutto Hippos. Final score, 42-35.
Yeah, this fool because of the final score, 42-35. What do you think about that,
lucky
Zach?
you kept it under 2 minutes. Jesus. I think Paul, I'm glad you're going to this game because I think you'll come from this game taking a lot more away from Cedar Park than you will Hutto.
I go to Ringers, bro.
I don't know what you're talking about. Cedar Park is the real deal. Ryder Hernandez is the real deal. That defensive front for
You
Cedar Park.
RJ was the best quarterback in the area.
In 6A, yeah.
Okay, now we're gonna. I thought you said like overall.
No, I never said that.
Classes. Okay, we're gonna go 5A now.
Mm-hmm.
He broke from his thought process, ladies and gentlemen.
But I just mean people put all this hype on Hutto every year. And it just never pans out. If it was going to be a year, Chase Griffin was the best quarterback they've had and will have for a long time.
They're collective this year. They have chemistry this year. They're playing as a unit this year. Yeah, their defensive leader is down.
They can collectively go to the quarterfinals probably.
Yeah, but we're talking about Friday night. We're not right now. We're talking about Friday night. Yes, Chris and I crowned them 5A Division II champions.
Division One.
I'm sorry, Division I champions. But we're getting it going. I see all this love coming through on the messenger.
We'll just ignore it. Bastrop Marble Falls. Also, did you pick a winner? Did you actually pick a winner there? Hutto and Cedar Park?
No,
Is that?
I think Hutto wins, and I think it's low scoring.
Ooh, okay.
Not did I say Hutto? Cedar Park. Sorry. Cedar Park is the real deal. Cedar Park's defense is for real.
And you've seen Cedar Park. You saw Cedar Park. I saw Cedar Park, but then when they played Cinco Ranch, and Cinco Ranch was terrible.
You saw them week 1, right, Zach?
Yeah.
Right. Coach Sanders said that Cedar Park defensive line is it's going to be one of the best defensive lines in the state.
Has he seen Hutto's defensive line?
No, I don't know.
No? Okay.
I don't know. Why Cedar Creek? Cedar Creek 1 and 2. They started out really well. Or 1 and 2 in 13-5-8 Division 2. Weiss now 3-0, looking for a 13-5-8 Division 2 title. Glenn and Eastview. Eastview coming back off of the loss against Brenham a couple weeks ago, getting the win against Bastrop. Glenn Grizzlies started off, was at 0-3, I believe, and now they've reeled off 3 in a row. Now it's 2-1 in district in 13-5-8 Division 2. Glenn trying to just do what they did last year and win that district. But this year, the other newcomer in varsity around here is Weiss Wolves, and they're going to be battling Glenn for that. Weiss did beat Glenn, was it a couple weeks ago here? Elgin, Brenham. Elgin sitting at 1 and 2. Brenham, we don't know a whole lot about because they're so far away, and hopefully, not that we don't want the Brenham Cubs in our districts around here, but to go watch them play, it's kind of a long drive, UIL. Come on.
UIL, you need to fix that.
Help us out. McNeil and Leander, both teams looking for their first district win in 13-6A. Who do you think wins this game?
McNeil Leander?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
Why are you making us pick this one?
Leander is...
No, I don't like Leander.
It's all-time bad.
They're almost Travis High School.
But no, dude, they're not. Actually, Leander's it's funny because Leander reminds me of Conley because they do have
Leander is Glenn.
They have very, very good players. And they're not performing. They're not performing up to what their standards could be. I mean,
Conley would beat Leander.
Yes.
Have y'all seen Leander?
I've seen. No, I haven't seen Leander. No.
I don't know.
I've seen Connolly play.
Conley could beat Leander.
I saw Leander last year, and
I just think Leander Lions.
And they're worse.
They're trying to find themselves.
Are they Weiss from last year?
Probably.
Okay.
Big game, 13-6A, Round Rock, Stony Point. Round Rock.
Man.
Can they stop Kendall Thomas? I don't think they can. Can anybody stop Kendall Thomas, running back for Stony Point? Anybody?
Jackson McCauley.
Yeah, but
yeah. Who's playing this year?
Is he playing this year?
Yeah.
Where?
For Vandergrift.
Oh.
Jackson McCauley's a linebacker.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the dude from last year. My bad.
So,
but that's like
that's a future matchup.
That's a future matchup. Do you think Round Rock can stop him?
I think if Stony Point is as good as everyone thinks they are, they should take care of Round Rock, by more than a score. If Round Rock keeps it close, they'll win.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Bowie Aikens 25-6A matchup. Anderson Austin High. Hayes and Lehman. Hayes trying to stay undefeated on the season. I think they have a good chance of doing that. McCallum Seguin, Travis, and Northeast. Also Reagan. All right, Lockhart High School Lions taking on Alamo Heights. Lockhart coming off that devastating loss there, Paul.
41-17 last week against Bernie Champion.
But
hopefully they can go down to Curva. That's a long hike too, UIL.
You mean San Antonio?
Oh, they're not playing Curva?
This is Alamo Heights right here.
Oh, Alamo Heights. Well, that's still a long trip.
Flatonia, shout out to the Bulldogs, taking on Somerville, the Yeguas. Somerville High School Yeguas at Yeguas Field.
Is it Yeguas?
Yeguas?
I don't know.
Yeguas? I don't know. We'll have to look that up. Shout out to Flatonia. There are, is it 2A?
2A Division 2.
2A Division 2 school.
I think they're still state ranked top 10 too.
They're ranked number 8 in the state right now.
Go Bulldogs. So that's going to wrap up our high school football roundup there, and we'll talk more on that on Saturday. So make sure you check out reconathlete.com podcast Saturday morning/afternoon. All right, quickly before we wrap up episode 17, I did want to talk a little bit about Longhorns, Aggies. Aggies, do we need to talk about them at all?
No.
Irrelevant. No, nothing at all. Longhorns, they got beat up. They allowed 9 sacks.
They literally got beat up. Like their whole team is injured in a half.
I mean, it was...
Tom Herman needs to quit recruiting these glass-ass players.
Probably, right.
Damn.
Probably, I don't know, because, I was reading different things. You hear different things. You see reports. They say that, with all the injuries, Tom wasn't going as hard in practice. And I'm like, yeah, but does that really translate into not getting up and being able to make a tackle on Saturday morning and the biggest rivalry in almost college football?
It was hard to watch.
I mean,
it was uninteresting to watch. Like the score was not indicative of the walloping that OU put on Texas.
Yeah, it was
Texas didn't look competitive in that game, honestly.
And they lost by 7 points.
Yeah, they honestly did not look competitive. Like it honestly looked like Texas couldn't stop OU if they wanted to.
So let's say if you watched a highlight reel of all the plays that didn't have scores in this football game, and you were to say, what do you think the score of that game would be? I don't think anybody would say OU won by 7.
Right.
I think it would be like, huh.
And
it was probably 70 to 2.
Highlights, if you were to work for ESPN and someone would be like, hey, I need you to pull all the Texas highlights of this game, you would have a hard time.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the good things that happened. Even Jalen Hurts' pick he threw it right to him.
Yeah.
Like it was not competitive, but they got to beat him again. Conference championship.
Do they get there?
Yeah.
You sound disappointed saying
I'm saying yeah.
You sound yeah. So you take care of Kansas.
Stay healthy, get healthy
against Kansas. I think at this point the biggest hurdles are going to be Baylor and Tech. You think?
Right. And I think
Kansas State.
I think Tech is scarier.
They're going to play Kansas State.
Tech is scarier than Baylor because Texas has just had Baylor's number.
Yeah.
And Tech has had Texas's number, plus the type of football they play exploits Texas's weakness this year. Texas's defense is not good. Their secondary, their pass defense is not good. Their tackling in open space is not good. And that's all what Tech wants to do to you. Yeah. So that game scares me more than the Baylor game. But I think the key is to just get healthy against Kansas.
Yeah, they got Kansas, TCU, Kansas State, Iowa State, Baylor. I think those are a couple of games that I think right there.
Honestly, when you read it out loud, I felt less and less confident.
16th and the 23rd, both road games. One of them is at Jack Trice Stadium against Iowa State Cyclones. And this is mid-November, mind you. Weather's probably going to be, might be snowing. It's going to be 30, 40 degrees probably. Texas players aren't used to that. But I think they're, so they're going to be challenged to, or I don't know, maybe it's going to be 60 degrees and sunny. I'm just saying.
One more thing before we get off this game. My Texas take, Roschon Johnson is not your number one running back. He's not. Keontae Ingram is. Keontae Ingram is a running back. They need to quit trying to run Roschon Johnson like he's been there for forever and he's been a running back for forever.
So why aren't they giving Keontae the ball?
I don't know.
I think Roschon is just Roschon. He's running
he's
with
just
a lot
the cool
of
new
passion.
toy.
Yeah, he's a cool new toy, and I agree with that. He's just hot right now, and he runs with a lot of passion. And I think that.
But when you have a weapon,
the coaches see a hot hand, they're like, "Oh, let's stick with a hot hand."
But Keontae Ingram has been that. He's been that, but he's not going to get hot if you give him half a carry and then pull him.
No rhythm.
And you need to get Roschon Johnson out of the game on third downs. He is not the pass protector that any of the other running backs are on the roster.
And if you want to keep Roschon in, fine, flex him out, put him in the slot,
but do not ask him to pass protect.
Get more creative.
He can't do it.
I agree.
He can't do it. You have Keontae Ingram that has been a proven pass protector. He got himself injured that one game trying to pass protect because he does it. He goes hard in pass protection. You have Daniel Young, who is probably the best pass protector on the team, but doesn't ever play. Kirk Johnson has played played at Texas for 19 years. He's definitely learned how to pass protect in at least one of those. So I think Roschon Johnson is an exciting player to watch, but I think Texas is using him the wrong way.
How do you want them to use him?
Like Paul said, he's Alvin Kamara. You
need to flex. You would need to flex out Roschon and have all your tools on the field. And you could utilize him in the jet sweep. You could utilize him in the screen game. You could utilize him even if you want to hand the ball off. You can do a triple option with Keontae Ingram, and you have Sam Ehlinger, probably the best running quarterback in the land right now. That's a power runner. And then you could also maybe pass out of that. Let's go back to Urban Meyer's playbook and steal some of those plays because Herman, didn't he coach under Urban Meyer for a little bit? Yes, he did. So use some of those plays and get creative with all these tools that you have and don't just power run Roschon Johnson, a.k.a. QB number 2.
Third string quarterback. Yeah,
exactly.
So I feel like you guys are saying, I'm kind of reading it between the lines here. Is Tom Herman inflexible with the way he's playing his offense?
Egos, bro. Egos. These coaches have too big of them, and they think they're God's gift to football, and I respect them for what they do and the sacrifices that they have to give up with their family.
It's because they want to be so right about Roschon Johnson.
Yes, I agree. That's part of it, but their egos, they just can't get over them because they're like, it'll work, give it time. It'll work, give it time.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is like, I mean, just because two players don't play the same position doesn't mean you can't put them in at the same time.
Right.
And I feel like that's what they do. They don't play Epps and Colin Johnson at the same time. Why not?
And I heard a stat last week too that Colin Johnson has never had an offensive snap with his brother Kirk Johnson. That definitely should have happened in the OU game because they weren't getting what they needed from that position. So why not rotate somebody else in?
And I sure hope Herman and his offensive staff are just not aware of it right now because that would make it more sense to me. But if they knowingly are putting these packages out there, shame on them because you have so many more tools and so many more resources at the University of Texas that y'all should be doing a lot better. And you're in tight games. I get it. Top level competition. I get it. But gosh, dog, y'all could be a lot better.
Beat Kansas.
Joe Burrow for Heisman.
Who?
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow.
Oh, okay.
You think Coach O at LSU is worried about who's playing and who's not? He's like, no, who's going to win? Who's he going to put on the field to win?
That's true. That's true.
Brought in Joe Burrow, graduate transfer.
Jalen Hurts, weren't impressed with him?
No. We talked about this. If
Jonathan Taylor, you weren't impressed with
Jonathan Taylor over Jalen Hurts.
The spread for that Florida LSU game was what, like 14 and a half? Mm-hmm. And they covered. And we said if they won, Joe Burrow was a Heisman front runner.
Y'all said that.
So you don't think he is?
I don't know. I mean,
who do you think? I'm just curious, because I don't know. Jalen Hurts?
I think Jalen Hurts is right now.
Still?
Because of they beat Texas by
7 points. I mean, it wasn't his fault that defense didn't do everything they could.
If they would have lost that game, it would have been his fault.
Yeah, that's true.
Those turnovers, it would have been because of those turnovers.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
And they were bad turnovers. The first one, the fumble, they asked him like if he was excited for like the nerves and stuff for his first Red River shootout. He was like, I played in an Iron Bowl. I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
If you played in an Iron Bowl and you played in these SEC defense, why is the 17th string defensive back hitting you and making you fumble?
True. All right. I'll go with Burrow. I guess you guys convinced me. Whatever. I'm just bitter because I'm bitter. I'm a bitter Longhorn fan.
Okay.
I'm bitter about LSU and bitter about OU. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you guys coming through. Any last words for these fools?
Joe Burrow for Heisman.
Paul?
Love your family. That's all I got to say right now.
That was a weird thing to say.